Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, joined by attorney Stephen Jessup, and we're going to talk about software developers and long-term disability insurance claims. And Stephen, when we were talking before this video, we quickly realized how many software developers we've represented in some of the biggest
hmm
companies across the country, and how much of a demand and need and probably the quantity of software developers are out there because our whole world seems to be managed by software now, not just in the business world, but everything from how traffic lights operate to security cameras in businesses, and of course, on our phones, whether it's app development or it's game development. Software development is everywhere. It's an unavoidable part of our life, and everybody in some form or another is using software.
Yeah,
But when
yeah.
it comes when it comes to a long-term disability insurance claim and a claimant puts in and says, "I'm a software developer at Microsoft," let's just use as an example because we've represented lots of people with the Microsoft long-term disability policy. How does the disability carrier tend to minimize the occupational duties of a software developer?
Easy. They're going to say sedentary, right? The big thing they're always going to look at is the physical demand level. It seems that the insurance companies always do this default, minimize lowest common denominator when it comes to work. They're going to look at your case for this idea of can you, sit at a desk and work? Can you do a desk job? Especially if the, condition that's disabling you is physically related. Obviously, if it's something with respect to mental health and stuff like that, they do look at it a little differently. But if you have a bad back, bad neck, chronic pain type thing, or a physical medical condition, they're going to strip it down to that lowest common denominator. Can you work at a desk, a desk job, if you will? And that's how they're going to take a look at your case. They're not going to give you any of the credit, especially initially, in my opinion, as it relates to what it is your job really entails. Anytime someone calls me and they're a software developer, they're in that line of work. Generally speaking, I'll joke with them. Well, you're certainly a heck of a lot smarter than me. And what you were saying too with software in itself is, we were talking like our client profile system that we use here in the office. We just expect it to work the way we want it. We like it a certain way, this and that. But there's someone that's developing, that's programming that every aspect of our life now is automated in some way, shape, or form. And there's a person behind the scenes that we don't see who's making sure the things that we use, the programs we use, like you said, traffic camera lights, the Ring doorbells, whatever the case may be, are running smooth. Everything that glitches are being fixed. These are extremely, extremely cognitively demanding, skilled labor jobs. So yes, your job may be sitting at a desk, but being a warm body in a chair is not how you make your money by any stretch of the imagination. And more importantly, that's not the material and substantial duty of your job.
Right, and we've seen another example of software. Delta Airlines, last summer, their system went down. Flights couldn't even
hmm
go. They
Yeah.
couldn't even board planes. I mean, so software is everywhere, but the software person, and this gets into how we as the attorney convey the occupational duties, is not just sitting at the desk and programming. You also have to understand the system that you're trying to program for. And that involves being integrated with the team that needs the software to do something. So you don't just spend all of your time sitting there typing in code and trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. You have to have an understanding as to what does this team want? What does this business need? What does this industry need to be implemented? And that is, there's never just like one person involved. There's tremendous amount of teams
hmm
involved. And if you're as a software developer on these bigger applications, you're working with tens or hundreds of other software developers,
Yeah.
and you don't have the luxury because one, it's like building a house. One step leads to the other. So
Exactly.
if you're sick or you're missing a lot of time and your partner or your other coworkers are waiting for this other piece of code to be done and you can't get it done, nothing gets done.
You're holding up the whole program. Yeah, you're holding up everything.
So it's in a way, it's kind of an all or nothing type business unless you're maybe an independent person who can work on your own pace and they give you 60 days to do something and they say, and you could maybe get it done in 30, but they're giving you 60 and you can work at your own speed and take a nap or do whatever you want, then maybe that works. But the way we've seen software, it's instantaneous and you always got to be on to the bigger and better and the next type of technology because every day things are changing. It's the reason we get an iPhone every 12 months and everything's changing constantly.
Yeah,
So
and
extremely demanding.
and it's a type of industry. It's very, competitive and cutthroat. If you're not able to keep up with demands because, your medical condition that you maybe don't tell anyone about, it's very easy for a company to say, we have to let you go because you're not performing. And if you are, being restricted or having issues because of a medical problem, but you continue to try to work through these things, if you do get, terminated from your employment, the likelihood of being able to establish a disability claim is very small. You might be, you might be out of luck on that. So in a highly competitive environment like this too, you have to be extra precautious if there's something medically that is impacting your ability to do the job, just to protect yourself in the long run.
So we're talking about having the medical treatment and support. How do you advise claimants as to how much medical support they need and when should they be getting that medical support prior to determining a dated disability?
Some people do, come to us and they've already been to the doctor a lot. They do have a history of medical. I have had cases where, they've had MRIs of the neck and the back if that's what the problems are. They have comparison. So some cases do come relatively, with a good medical history, but we do see a large share of these cases where people don't have the time to go to the doctor. They don't really go to the doctor. Maybe they see their primary care physician who recommends they go see a specialist, but they don't. So it's all really case by case, with each individual where they're at. The one thing unequivocally we can say is you do not file a claim cold turkey. You do not just one day without, being with the doctors or seeing a doctor in a month or two say, I can't do this anymore and file a claim for disability on some type of chronic condition. Now, if it's you get in an accident or something like that, that's a different story. But generally speaking, we're talking chronic medical conditions they've been working through. You want to have a good amount of support and documentation leading up in the months before thinking about filing, because an insurance company is always going to ask, two things initially. One, medical treatment, first and foremost. Do you have it? And if you did, were you reporting this to, issues you were having to your doctor? Are there notes in there about problems, maybe side effects of medication or problems at work, things like that? Or two, if someone does have a lot of medical support, this idea from an insurance company, what changed? You maybe been able to work with all these problems for quite some time. So an insurance company's like, well, if you've been able to do it and you haven't really had any work performance issues or missing work, what's changed? Why are you now, disabled for purposes of this policy? Diagnosis doesn't equal disability. So it's really getting to understand from the, the prospective client where they are in their treatment, what the condition is, and doubly important is making sure your doctor understands what it is you do. Because if an insurance company reaches out to your doctor, and they will, they're not going to ask, hey, can this person do these specific job duties? They're going to try to generalize it back to this idea, can they do sedentary work? Or, do you think this person be restricted from working? And I've seen cases, I'm sure you certainly have, where doctors think of work as this global idea that work of any sort, not the work that, defined under your policy for doing your own occupation, things like that. The medical is going to be the most important aspect of anyone's hope of getting one of these claims approved. And it's going to vary so much. There's really no hard set rules for everything because every person's position is different and every medical condition and the impact is going to be different.
So the last topic I want to cover is this concept of the fact that these claims are usually governed by ERISA. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is that 95% or more of software developers work for a big company. And that company provides them with their disability insurance coverage as an employee benefit, which means it's governed by the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, just like their health insurance is provided to them as an employee benefit. As opposed to if they had bought a private disability insurance policy on their own, which they certainly can. However, more often than not, we see this big group disability policy. And I want you to talk about why it's so important, whether you're applying or you're in an appeal, to have absolutely as much support as you can on paper because of the fact that it's governed by ERISA and not having your right to a jury trial or a trial of your peers, I call it, in court one day if you're denied.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that comes with this, most people think, hey, I don't need to buy my own policy. My work provides one. Well, these policies, like you said, are governed by federal statute, ERISA. And the hallmarks of this, if you get into court, is no jury trials, no live testimony in court. So you don't testify, your doctors aren't going to be able to testify. And a federal judge, the only thing a federal judge will be able to review when determining who's going to win this case is what's in your claim file, the administrative record. And that's anything that the insurance company created in reviewing your case or you submitted as part of your case. So when you're submitting the claim, you want to make sure all your information is there. From an appeal standpoint, you can get a denial letter. They'll explain why they don't think you're disabled. You access your claim file, you prepare your appeal, and your appeal, for all intents and purposes, is your trial argument. These are all the things that you're going to want to be able to argue to a judge and use to perfect your case. If you aren't documenting well, if your doctors aren't documenting well, and so many times we see where people just write an appeal letter as, I'm appealing your decision, and they don't provide any additional information. If your claim is denied, your appeal is denied, you can only file a lawsuit, the date of the denial, that's the end. That's the snippet in time a judge is going to look at. You could, be awarded Social Security. You could have, something from your condition may lead to a big surgery, but that's outside the scope of the judge's review. And generally speaking, as a default, these cases will have what's known as an arbitrary and capricious standard of review. So you go into court having to prove two things. One, that you're disabled. Generally, I think that's the easier thing to prove, is that medically speaking, you wouldn't be able to do a job. And then beyond that, a judge makes a determination, did your insurance company act arbitrary and capricious? Layman's term, that is this idea of, did they have a reasonable review and a reasonable basis to deny your claim? So if that is the case, the judge has to uphold that decision. So you're in a situation where a judge can say, I think Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so is disabled. However, respective insurance companies' review wasn't unreasonable, and the conclusions they made were reasonable in light of the information before them. I have to uphold their decision. So your claim is purely driven by documentation. The paper trail has to be as long, thick, and thorough as possible to not only give you a chance of winning your case in the event of a denial, or giving you the best chance and possibility of a positive outcome in trial.
And I think software developers understand, papering, that one thing leads to another, but they're not disability insurance experts, and they don't know how the companies are going to look at this. And that's obviously where we provide the guidance to make sure they can maximize their benefits. So many more issues to talk about, but the best thing I think for someone who's a software developer and has a situation with a disability insurance claim is to contact Steven, myself, any of the lawyers on our team, and we'll provide you with an immediate free phone consultation. We'll likely ask you for a copy of your policy or your denial letter if you've been denied. The other thing we'd really like you to do is we want you to have as much knowledge as possible about your insurance company and about this whole disability insurance claim process. And the best way to do that is to go on our website and search your particular company. When you find your company, you'll see we have a lot of information about reviews about your company, questions and answers that we, as our lawyers, we answer all the questions that people ask us, and it's publicly out there as an education process. And then we review hundreds of lawsuits against your particular company, and you start to get knowledge as to how your company acts, how they evaluate things. And I guarantee you're going to read the first two summaries and you're going to go, that's what they did to me.
Yep.
Or that's what they easily could do to me. And so we want you to know. And when you know, we think you're going to be in a better position to understand how we can guide you to get your benefits approved out of the box or get your benefits reinstated if you've been denied. And that's what the goal is here for everybody. So we're available to represent you anywhere in the country. We appreciate you considering our law firm. We highly recommend that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you remember who we are and that you continue to get updated videos like this that will hopefully provide you tips for your disability claim. We're here for you in the future should you need us, and we appreciate you considering our law firm.